Welcome to Georgia Week in Review. I'm Bill Nigut. We want to start the program this week with some good news. News about some schools in Georgia that are performing far better than some people think they might be performing. Education reform is a very big issue in Georgia these days. Governor Barnes has staked his entire first term on making Georgia's schools better. But today we are going to turn to a report that comes from the Georgia Public Policy Foundation, which every year singles out schools that have high poverty rates and lots of strikes against them, but nevertheless manage to succeed. And joining us for this discussion is the principal of one of those schools, Alice Thompson of Nancy Creek Elementary School. She's been there for 7 years, and in a minute you'll hear about the successes that she's had there. And from the Georgia Public Policy Foundation, Holly Robinson, who deals with education issues for the foundation and is instrumental in putting this report together. Thank you both very much for being here. Let me very quickly show you. This is one of the reports that comes out. It's the Georgia Report Card for Parents. They do it for elementary, middle, and high school kids, or schools, every year. Holly, let's start by saying you talk about no excuses schools. Right. What's the whole point?
Well, the whole point is that these are schools that have a very high poverty rate, which is the poverty based on the free and reduced lunch. And then on our poverty index, which we create uniquely for our report card, which shows a correlation between high poverty rates and low test scores. And what these schools have done is they have stood up, they have beat the odds, regardless of ethnic or racial makeup of their school, family income, family background, and they have proven that all children can learn, and all children can learn to read and do math and write and all the kinds of things that we want all of our children doing in our schools.
Now let me ask you what may seem to be a self-evident question. Why should we assume that schools with high poverty rates might be lower performers?
Because statistically across, not only in Georgia, but statistically across the country, there is a true match between higher poverty rates and lower test scores. And that's done on a linear regression, and it's been done by state departments and by even the Federal Department of Education across the country. And the old Title I programs have run those types of statistics as well. Although the Title I programs and a lot of these other things have not been nearly as successful as Alice's school and the other schools, the 24 schools that are No Excuses schools this year in Georgia.
The Georgia Public Policy Foundation, and Alice, you were part of it this year, has a morning in which they recognize all the schools that they say have succeeded beyond expectations. It's frankly one of my favorite stories of the year to cover because it is a very good news story. Your school, let me go in, I should have looked at it. You performed, or I should have had it bookmarked, but I don't, but give me a second. Your school scored, these are based on the fourth grade criterion CRT test, right?
Yes.
Had an 85 achievement score, 85%, a 12-point increase from the previous year, and you had 38% of the students exceeding the standards for achievement on these tests, according to the report card this year. How do you do it?
Well, I think it starts off with commitment. And I think it starts off not only with commitment from the administration, but from the entire faculty and staff. We have a dedicated, hardworking faculty and staff. Our philosophy is that we feel that all children should be nurtured, we should provide nurture and secure environment in order for them to strive. Kids who come to school and feel safe, they will strive. We work extremely hard, we're creative, we do a lot of hands-ons, and this helps our kids' achievement improved. We have an open door policy. Parents can come in at any time that they want to come in to talk with me or to come in and talk with my teachers. They can go in to observe. You know, children are used to parents just coming in, observing for about 10 or 15 minutes and then just leaving out. And I think with all of this and with the high expectations that we have for the kids, I think that has helped a lot in the schools.
Boy, that's one of the key things, Bill, that high expectations. I hear that as I go around and visit these No Excuses schools. That's one of the things that the principals and the teachers always talk about. They set high expectations. They not only set them, but they keep working toward those high expectations. That whole concept and that whole thrust for continual student improvement, that you can do it, you can do better, we know you can do it. That's a whole philosophy.
How do you do that practically on a day-to-day basis? How does that translate to the way you communicate to the kids at Nancy Creek on a day-to-day basis?
I think, first of all, parental involvement. That plays a big part, too. Our parents come in, they help out in whatever way they can. We have monthly volunteer nights from approximately 5:30 to 8:30 for the parents who work and who can't come in during the day. I think with children seeing their parents at school, I think that also helps them to achieve. They know that the parents in school, they're working together. We talk to kids every day. We do a pledge every morning on the morning announcement. Today is a new day, today is a fresh start. We talk to kids about what we expect them to do. The objectives are written on the board in every classroom. If you walk in any classroom, you're going to see the objectives written on the board.
What are some of those objectives?
It all depends on whatever the subject area is. You know, if it's reading, math, or whatever, the objectives for that day is stated on the board.
Give us a little snapshot of the population of your school.
We are approximately, and this is approximation, we're approximately like 49% black. We are about 21% Hispanic. I would say about 21% white, and I would say about 6% Asians, you know.
And you have a high percentage of kids who speak English as a second language,
We have a very high percent. We have a full-time ESOL teacher there. We have a Spanish teacher there. I have 2 secretaries. One of them is bilingual. So we have worked really hard to work with these kids. We have several teachers who are on the staff who also speak Spanish.
Boy, is that an example of why the school succeeds. Leadership, leadership, and leadership. Every No Excuses school has a dynamic, thoughtful, caring, and focused principal. And that's so important, and Alice is such an example of that for all of us to recognize. And I think one of the other things that she mentioned, which is so significant, is bringing the family in. The parent, the guardian, whoever's there, and have their constant involvement. One of the other No Excuses schools in the state is in an area where parents have very little transportation, and they actually send out a school bus.
Yes, we do that too.
And to pick up, you do that as well, Alice. They send out a school bus in the evening to pick up parents so that they can be there. So anything they can do to involve everyone that makes student learning the focus of what's going on, they are doing.
Yeah, it seems to me that that there are always these themes in the schools that you pick. One of them being not accepting low standards, leadership. Now you talk about parental involvement. It's something we hear about as we go into poorer schools all the time. The parents are not available to come to the school, to be part of the school. They're not at home to help the kids focus on their homework. They're busy. They're single parent families in many cases. They're working all the time. And is it difficult to get the kind of parental involvement you need at your school?
Well, I think it's something that you really have to work toward. We, at the beginning, at registration, our parents signed a pledge that they would pledge 9 hours per semester in the schools. And what we do is they sign in when they come in, and at the end of the semester, we usually look at the sign-in log. And what I will do is I will contact the parent, and I will say, you have not, met your 9 hours. Please, what can we do to help you? And usually, a lot of times, they will say, Ms. Thompson, I'm working 2 jobs. Please send some stuff home with the children so that we do that. We also have, like I said, the volunteer nights. That's once a month from 5:30 to 8:30. We have parents who work and can't come in today. They come out for that. And that has really been successful.
Holly, let me talk to you a bit about the governor's reform initiatives. Now, except for some political carping, most people believe that trying to set higher standards and trying to hold schools, both teachers and students, accountable has been a very good idea. But the schools that succeed, in your report card, go beyond just the basic reforms that the governor's tried to put in place, yes?
Well, yes, they do, and certainly these No Excuses schools are a fine example of what the governor lays down for the standards. But in any situation, if you say to someone, you know, we'd like you to meet these standards, what the goal is always is to set higher expectations, to set that as where everyone needs to be. I mean, everyone needs to be able to read. And if they're in third grade, they need to be able to read on the third grade reading level. But then what you want is you want them to be interested in literature. You want them to be interested in, you know, art history. And if you're teaching social studies in the 4th or 5th grade, you want them to be able to meet the set standards, the statewide standards. But then obviously you want to enhance that. You want them to have more. So yes, what you're saying is absolutely correct. They're there, those standards are good, and we do all need to meet those standards. But we also need to work statewide to be sure that our standards are as good as they can be, and that in the particular subject areas and in the particular grade levels that the standards are set to get the students where they need to be to go to the next grade, and also to create the kind of careers and goals and visions that these youngsters have. And they do have them.
I'll tell you another thing that has helped Nancy Creek is volunteers. We have the senior citizen reading pals that come into my reading lab that help out every day. We have the Atlanta Jewish Coalition Literacy Group. That's about 50 to 55 ladies that come in and help. We have the Chamblee High School teacher cadet group that comes in. We have just an abundance amount of reading.
Now, where do they come from? How do you have them coming to your school? Is that something you've gone out and solicited?
That's something that we've gone out. Now, my reading specialist for my senior citizen reading pal, she has done that. For the Atlanta Jewish Coalition Literacy, that's something that my assistant principal and I, we have done. And we've also met with Chamblee High School to get the teacher cadet. And that has just been wonderful.
Well, the point is that that's taken energy on your part.
Absolutely.
Again, this is an example of how a school needs to reach out to bring these resources in. This is not something that's automatically provided by the DeKalb County school system or by the state that's trying to help. This is what you do to move forward. Yes.
And that goes back to that principal leadership that I talked about earlier. Those principals in the No Excuses schools have all gone out and have all done everything they can to help their students learn. And their focus, every single principal I've spoken to has one focus, and that focus is student achievement, student learning. And everything they do comes back to that very specific focus. Because if those students learn and those students achieve, they're successful. And it reflects very directly on the principal and certainly on a very strong faculty.
There are some very interesting stories about the obstacles that stand in the way of school success. Let me share one story with you. There is a school in the city of Atlanta where the principal was asked what she needed, what kind of help did she need to move ahead with her kids. And one of the things she said was, I need a clothes dryer. So why do you need a clothes dryer? Because my students come from a public bus line that's a long walk from the school. And if it's raining out, they come to school in wet clothes, and there's nothing to change into, and they spend the whole day, you know, soggy and not focusing on education.
Right.
It's a remarkable thing to think about that sort of peculiar request that a principal thinks would move her school forward in some way.
And it's anything that makes the child comfortable and ready to learn.
And feel safe.
And feel safe. I know the little boy that I interviewed when we were all down together at the elementary school in the city of Atlanta, in Bethune. One of the little boys said to me, you know, this is my school, and I said, you know, I'm so proud of you that you've done so well. And he said, and my teacher is Miss whoever his teacher was, and he said, and I like my school, and I feel safe here. And that's, Alice has brought that up a number of times this morning. You know, they need to feel part of a safe learning community. And these schools, these No Excuses schools, have created that larger community. And they are not shy going out and getting all of this other support, all these other support systems that are available if you really get out and look. But you really have to get out and work on it. And they are also not afraid, as Alice has very directly indicated, to get the parents involved. And if you don't have two parents, or you have a guardian, or you have a grandmother, or you have an uncle or an older brother, that's the person that is going to be there some of the time. That's fine. You take whatever you can get in your support system to create that whole world of learning for the child.
Do we have a system that has produced a number of administrators around the state who are not prepared to take the kind of leadership role that we've seen in your no excuses schools? Is the system turning out leaders who are able to do this? If it did, we'd have many no excuses schools.
But, well, you know, I don't know if you want to blame it on a system as a whole.
Well, I understand that.
You know, it's much more the personality and the dynamics and the caring and the drive of that particular individual. And, you know, it's something that you very often can't put your finger on and say, that's the one thing that made that person different. Maybe it was that person's mother. You know, I mean, you truly never know what was the influencer that makes this principle so dynamic and so committed. You know, there are a number of things that go into there's encouragement, there's accountability, there's discipline. We haven't even talked about discipline.
And I think commitment. You have to be committed to make it work.
Well, we have run out of time for this segment, but our congratulations to you, Alice Thompson.
Yes,
we love to
absolutely.
hear success stories about Georgia's public schools, and we appreciate your being with us today. And Holly, it's always a pleasure to have you,
Thank you, Bill.
talking about this subject with us.